there is a nuance that I haven't touched on that I just want to, it's going to be a very short video, but I do feel that we need to touch on this, is when you have resistance against self-care, and especially self-care that when you sit still to have your self-care, where you take that moment to yourself. We have been, and I say we, but there are exceptions to the rule. Most of my childhood, so let me speak out of my own experience. Most of my childhood, my parents did not sit idly. In other words, there were now and again situations where my dad would sit under the grapevines that we had in the backyard and just be. Usually that was after an emotional upset and he needed time to process, but if everything was going perfect and everything was fine and it didn't create an overload of the senses, he wouldn't go and sit there. He would go and work in the garden that is like there at the grapevines and stuff. So idle sitting wasn't a thing. And that was linked to how he was raised. So his father worked his bum off, and his mom, my dad's mom, and the same for my mom. Her parents worked. There wasn't really, if you think about this logically, even if her dad or her mom took 10 minutes for themselves while the kids were at school, or if you're still staying at home while you are at work, you as the person leaving the house is not going to see them taking those 10 minutes, because when you go back home, it's dinner and eating and dishes and getting ready for tomorrow and all of that. So even if they took their 10 minutes or their 15 or their half an hour or whatever, their self-love time, it wouldn't be something that the person that is moving in and out of the house would be observing. That's to say that the person, the child or the grown-up, is observant enough to actually see when their parents are taking time. When I'm thinking back about when did my parents really just sit and look at the trees and sway with the branches, or look at the clouds, and I'm doing that now while I'm actually on a video. Just shows you how mesmerized I am with nature. But that being, I can't recall. I know that my dad sat outside on the stoop when after he retired, he would sit and watch the birds in the bird bath. But I can't recall a time when my dad was working. There was always something that occupied. Either if he came home from work, and he didn't have a normal work, he traveled a lot. He came home, he would be watching the news, then he would catch up on his reading, go and sit at the dining room table and, do the bowls. And then mom would be cooking, making tea, dishes, making sure our homework is done, all of those things. There wasn't, that I can recall, I have to say, I can't say there wasn't. There were two other people in the house. I might have seen it. Them ever sitting down and just going woosah. Saturdays and Sundays, my mom would go to Sunday, we would go to church, come back, start lunch, then lunch, dishes. It took about 4 hours, so we got out church. So 1 o'clock, and then they take an afternoon nap because they're tired. And that afternoon nap is like half an hour, and then everybody's groggy and you have a cup of tea and so on. But there's a lot of guilt associated with that. There's a lot of guilt with, I am going to take half an hour and I'm going to lie on my couch and I'm going to read. Something that works on my nerves is I love to take, when my body is telling me to take an afternoon nap, I listen. I strongly believe that you need to listen, because my body is either repairing something or checking on my immune system. It's basically, my body is a computer, and sometimes it needs to reboot. Sometimes that needs to happen in the middle of the day. So, and there's a lot of comments that gets made. Oh, you're going to take an afternoon nap again, or are you sleeping again? I like how the word again is thrown in there. And the thing is, if that is my self-care, why should I be guilted for it? If that is what I need to recharge my battery, why should somebody else guilt me for it? And the thing is, it's not necessarily our loved ones that are guilting us. It's random comments that are made by people on the outside. I think those, it's very easy to say to a loved one, listen, I've got an idea, go and fly a kite, leave me alone, because that's the type of relationship that most of us have. But a random person, like somebody you work with, that goes like, oh, you take afternoon naps? No, that's a sign of laziness. You can't do that. Why am I being guilted for self-love? And then, just as a kicker, if there's not somebody else out there that is making you feel guilty, you go and you do it yourself. You go and you convince yourself that, you should feel guilty about this because you're not being productive. Because there's this huge, I want to say misconception that if you sit still, you're not productive. Me being productive has got nothing to do with my self-love. If I feel, let me put it this way, if I feel overwhelmed with things that have happened from 7 o'clock this morning until 3 o'clock this afternoon, and everybody is fed and everybody's busy with their own thing, why am I not allowed to take 15 minutes to just think about what has happened and take the other 15 minutes to just sit? Why do I have to think about something to make myself feel better and think that I'm not being lazy? And that is the nuance that I didn't address. That is the thing, that resistance to self-care sometimes comes from a guilt feeling, a feeling that we either place on ourselves because we feel that we should be doing something else. I'm just going to ask you this: if your cell phone's battery runs out and you put that thing on charge while you're using it, do you not actually shorten your battery life? In other words, in the long run, you're going to pay for what you're doing. And the human body is exactly the same. Yes, we should recharge. We should. But some days we are busier than other days, so our batteries run flat halfway through the day. So if you need to take that afternoon nap, you take it. It's not like you're having this whole guilt conversation with your cell phone if it's been a very busy morning and you need to put your phone on charge. You're not saying to your phone, like, how can you do this to me? Now that you're going to be on charge means that there's nothing going on. Dude, there's so many background programs running on your phone, and you are exactly the same. There are so many background programs running while you are recharging your battery, your own human battery, that you're not really sitting and doing nothing. I'm not saying take weeks and weeks to yourself. I'm saying prioritize self-care, whatever self-care looks like to you. Apparently to me it's napping and journaling. Luckily I don't do those on the same day, okay? So I usually when I journal. And then when I need a nap, then I take my nap. but sometimes time doesn't allow you to do that. So naps happen over the weekend. That's when my naps happen. I'm like a cat, maybe a dog. I've seen, like, Fina sleeps the whole day, so living her best life. Can I just say that? So be conscious of the fact, like your cell phone, sometimes you're more busy than other days and you have to go for a recharge in the middle of the day. You're not going to poop on your cell phone because that is the case. You're going to plug it in, you're going to be okay with it and wait for it to charge. Why don't you have the same patience with yourself? You know, if you need half an hour to journal, put an alarm on, journal for half an hour. You've taken self-care. Even if you don't have an hour or 2 hours, your time might not be your own, but you need to schedule a half an hour in for yourself, minimum. And put down an alarm, schedule it in, and you do the self-care that you need to do without feeling guilty. Because if you're getting resistance against self-care because you're feeling guilty about sitting still or taking that time for yourself, you need to seriously re-evaluate the principles and the values that you were raised with and try and see if those circumstances are still applicable on your current situation. If it's not, then you can't apply those rules to this situation. But that is a conversation for a whole new area. Hope this made as much sense to you as it did in my head. Okay, bye.